The call came on a Tuesday morning. I was halfway through my coffee when Rebecca's name flashed on my phone. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello, Rebecca. I've sold the house. No greeting, no preamble. Just those 4 words, delivered with the kind of satisfaction that told me she'd been waiting to say them for months. The papers are signed. New owners move in next week. You have until Friday to get out. I set my coffee down carefully. The house. Don't play dumb, Olivia. The one you've been living in rent-free since your father died. Well, that ends now. I found buyers who will appreciate it properly. My name is Olivia Matthews. The house Rebecca was talking about wasn't just any house. It was the place my father had poured his life into. Every restored window, every hand-carved banister, every inch of it carried his fingerprints. When he died 2 years ago, I thought I'd lose everything. Instead, I'd found out something that changed everything. But Rebecca didn't know that yet. That's interesting, I said carefully. You're sure about this? Of course I'm sure. I'm his widow. The house was in his name. You may have been his precious daughter, but I have rights too. Her voice hardened. Maybe you'll think twice next time before questioning my decisions. There it was. The real reason. 3 months earlier, I'd stopped her from gutting the house's historic features. The hand-carved banisters. The original hardwood floors. The stained glass windows my father had loved. She wanted to tear it all out and modernize it. Erase every trace of him. I understand, I said. Thanks for letting me know. Just make sure you're gone by Friday, Olivia. I hung up without another word. For a moment, I just sat there with my coffee, remembering something my father had told me during his final weeks. We were alone in his study. Rebecca was at her spa appointment, like she always was on Thursday afternoons. Livy, he'd said, using the nickname from my childhood, I need you to trust me. I'm not who she thinks I am, and neither are you. His hand had trembled when he handed me a business card. James Harrison, attorney at law. Go see him, Dad whispered. After. When you're ready. He'll explain everything. I wanted to ask questions, but Dad was already so tired, so weak. 2 weeks later, he was gone. I'd met with Mr. Harrison 5 days after the funeral. He'd listened to my grief, my fear about facing Rebecca, my uncertainty about everything. Then he'd opened a folder and changed my entire understanding of my father's mind. Your father, Mr. Harrison had explained, was very aware of Rebecca's nature, more aware than you might think. Now, as Rebecca's words echoed in my head, I picked up my phone and called him. Olivia, he answered warmly. I was expecting this call. She did it. She tried to sell it. Did she? I could hear the faint smile in his voice. Well, shall we set things in motion? Yes, but make sure the buyers understand what's happening. I don't want innocent people caught in her mess. After I hung up, I walked through the house. My house. I ran my hands along the walls my father had painted, the door frames he'd restored, the shelves he'd built. Every room held us, him teaching me how to measure twice, cut once. Me handing him sandwiches while he worked. The quiet afternoons we'd spent together in a space that was ours. Rebecca had married my father 5 years ago when I was 23. First, she'd been perfect. Smiles, kind words, the devoted new wife. But after the wedding, the mask slipped. She'd made snide comments about how close Dad and I were. She'd pushed to change things. She'd wanted him isolated, dependent on her. And he'd let her think she was succeeding. What she didn't understand was that my father had been playing a much longer game than she realized. Around 3 o'clock my phone exploded. Multiple missed calls. Texts in all caps. Rebecca's voice, sharp with fury, came through in a voicemail. You knew. You knew about all of it. Call me back right now, Olivia. I was sitting in the garden when she arrived. Her Mercedes screeched into the driveway, and she stormed out waving a letter, her face already red. You conniving little witch, she screamed. You and James plotted this behind my back. I remained seated on the bench, brushing dirt from my hands. Plotted what, Rebecca? Don't play innocent. She thrust the letter at me, her hands shaking. The trust. The property transfer. All of it. Your father would never. My father did exactly what he needed to do, I said quietly, standing up. To protect me. To protect this house. To protect himself from you. She took a step back, her expensive heels sinking into the grass. That's impossible. The house was never in his name alone, I continued. He transferred it into a trust years ago, long before he met you. I'm the sole beneficiary. You had no legal right to sell it. You're lying. But I could see the moment the truth landed. Her face went pale. Check the property records, I suggested. They're public. Dad made sure of that. He wanted everything transparent when the time came. Rebecca's hands were shaking so hard she nearly dropped the letter. The buyers. Their lawyer. They're threatening legal action. Do you know how humiliating this is? Almost as humiliating as trying to throw your stepdaughter out of her own home, I said. Or spending years pretending to care about someone just to get their money. She flinched. You don't understand anything about my relationship with your father. I understand more than you think. I moved closer, my voice steady. My father told me everything before he died. About the prenup you refused to sign. About the mysterious withdrawals from his accounts. About the men you met with while he was in the hospital. Her eyes widened. He knew. He knew everything, Rebecca. He just waited. Watched. Planned. I pulled out my phone. I've recorded this entire conversation. Every word. Would you like me to add it to the file Mr. Harrison is building about your attempt to illegally sell property you don't own? For the first time since I'd known her, Rebecca was silent. She stood there in my father's garden, surrounded by the roses he'd loved, looking completely lost. Leave, I said simply. Leave the house. Leave me alone. And leave my father's memory alone. If you try anything else, any more schemes, any more attempts to take what isn't yours, everything comes out. All of it. She stared at me and I could see her mind working, calculating, searching for a way out. But there wasn't one. Not this time. This isn't over, she whispered. But her voice had no strength behind it. Actually, I said, it is. She turned and walked back to her car, her steps unsteady. As she drove away, I noticed she dropped the lawyer's letter in the grass. I picked it up and smoothed it out. The legal language was clear. Rebecca had no claim to the house. Her attempt to sell it was fraud. My phone buzzed. A text from Mr. Harrison. How did she take it? About as well as expected, I replied. But I think she's starting to understand that she never really knew my father at all. Or you, he texted back. Your father always said you had his mind for strategy. I looked around the garden as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the grass. Rebecca had thought she was in control. She'd thought she understood the game. But she'd been playing checkers while my father had been playing chess. And he taught me every move. What she didn't know, what I hadn't told her yet, was that there was far more to discover. My father hadn't just protected the house. He documented everything. Every lie, every scheme, every dark intention she'd harbored. And soon I would have to decide what to do with that knowledge. But that was a conversation for another day. Tonight I would simply sit in this garden my father had built, surrounded by the life he'd fought so hard to protect, and wait for the next move in a game that was far from over. That night I couldn't sleep. I found myself in my father's study, surrounded by his books and papers, looking for something I couldn't quite name. It was close to midnight when I found the envelope wedged behind a stack of journals in the bottom drawer of his desk. My name was written on it in my father's handwriting. The envelope was sealed, dated just days before he died. My hands trembled as I opened it. My dearest Livy, if you're reading this, then everything has gone exactly as I planned. Rebecca has probably tried to take the house by now, and you've discovered what James arranged for you. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you everything while I was alive. Rebecca was watching too closely, and I needed her to believe she had one. You see, about a year into our marriage I realized what she really was. Not all at once. It happened slowly. The occasional dizzy spell. The confusion. The weakness that wouldn't go away. I thought it was just age catching up with me. Until one evening I noticed something in my tea. A discoloration. A faint taste I couldn't quite identify. I had James investigate quietly. What we discovered made my blood run cold. Rebecca had been poisoning me. Not enough to kill me quickly, she was too clever for that. Just enough to make it look like natural decline. Just enough to make everyone believe I was fading away, becoming dependent on her. But I played along. I let her think she was succeeding. While she believed she was winning, I was making arrangements. Legal arrangements. I transferred the house to a trust with you as the sole beneficiary. I documented everything. Every lie. Every scheme. Every moment of her deception. I know it must have hurt watching me seem to choose her over you in those final months. Please forgive me for that. I needed her to believe she had complete control, so she wouldn't suspect what was coming. Behind the loose brick in the study fireplace, you'll find a USB drive. On it is footage from cameras I had installed. Everything she did. Every drop she added to my tea. Every phone call about her plans for after my death. Every moment of her true nature captured. I'm leaving it to you to decide what to do with it. I suspect you'll be wiser about it than I would have been. The house isn't just a building, Livy. It's our legacy. Every repair we made together. Every afternoon we spent in the garden. Every memory we created within these walls. I couldn't let her erase that. I couldn't let her erase us. Remember this. True strength isn't always about confrontation. Sometimes it's about patience. About waiting for the right moment. About letting people reveal their own nature and then deciding how to respond. I love you. I'm so proud of who you are and who you're becoming. Dad. I sat there for a long time, the letter shaking in my hands. Everything made sense now. His distant behavior in those final months. The way he'd insisted on having tea alone with Rebecca every evening. His cryptic conversations. His insistence that I trust him. He'd been protecting me the entire time. Moving to the fireplace with the letter still in my hand, I found the loose brick easily. It came away smoothly, as if my father had loosened it on purpose, knowing I would find it someday. Behind it was a small USB drive and a second envelope. Show this to the police when you're ready. They need to know what she did. I held the drive in my palm, feeling its weight. The evidence of attempted murder. Fraud. Conspiracy. Everything needed to take Rebecca down completely. I called Mr. Harrison, even though it was past midnight. James, I said when he answered. I found the letter. And the drive. He was quiet for a moment. Are you going to the police? I thought about it. The evidence on the drive was damning. Rebecca would face criminal charges. Prison time most likely. Her entire world would collapse. And then I thought about my father, the way he'd said I would be wiser about it than he would have been. Not yet, I decided. Let's keep it as insurance. Knowing we have it. That's enough. Your father said you'd say exactly that. I could hear the smile in his voice. He always believed you had his gift for strategy. The next morning, a large envelope arrived by courier. It was from Rebecca's lawyer. Inside was a formal document, pristine and official, relinquishing any and all claims to the house and my father's estate. Attached was a handwritten note in Rebecca's shaky handwriting. You win, Olivia. I'm leaving the state. Don't contact me. Just keep what you know to yourself. She'd found the cameras. Of course she had. In the days after our confrontation, she must have searched the house desperately, looking for anything incriminating. The USB drive was just backup. The threat of its existence, the knowledge that she'd been recorded, documented, exposed, that was enough. I stood in the study for a long time, looking at the empty space behind the loose brick. My father had given me a choice, and in choosing mercy over revenge, I'd chosen something else entirely. I'd chosen to be like him. Strategic. Patient. Wise. The weeks that followed brought a strange kind of peace. I spent my evenings restoring the house to its original state, undoing Rebecca's modernizations one room at a time. I refinished the hardwood floors. I restored the original paint colors in the hallway. I brought back the character my father had spent years creating. One evening, I found myself in the garden, tending to the roses my father had loved, the ones Rebecca had wanted to tear out. As I worked my hands in the soil, I could almost hear his voice. Strength isn't always about confrontation, Livy. Sometimes it's about waiting, about watching, about letting people reveal their true nature. He'd been right, of course. He was always right. Rebecca had taught me about deception, about the masks people wear and the lengths they'll go to get what they want. But my father had taught me something far more valuable. He'd show me how to see through those masks, how to protect what matters most, how to win without losing yourself in the process. The house stands as it always has, filled with light and memory and the quiet echo of a father's love. Every corner is exactly as my father wanted it to be. The stained glass windows still cast colored light across the hallway in the afternoons. The hand-carved banisters still line the stairs. The garden still blooms with roses. And somewhere I like to think my father is smiling. Not because I defeated Rebecca. Not because I exposed her lies or held the threat of legal consequences over her head. He's smiling because I learned the real lesson he was trying to teach me. That the strongest victories are the ones won in silence. That patience is its own form of power. That sometimes the best response to betrayal is simply to live well, to protect what matters, and to let time reveal the truth. The USB drive remains behind the loose brick in the study fireplace. A silent guardian. Insurance against a future that may never come. But more than that, it's a reminder of my father's genius, his love, and his absolute faith that I would make the right choice. As for Rebecca, she's gone. She left the state as promised. I don't know where she is and I don't particularly care. She's irrelevant now. A shadow that passed through our lives and left nothing but the knowledge that some people will always choose deception over love, control over connection. But she couldn't touch what my father and I built. She couldn't erase us. She couldn't rewrite our story. Because the truth is, my father knew her from the beginning. He saw what she was. And instead of confronting her, he simply outmaneuvered her, protected me, and trusted that when the moment came I would understand. Every evening, I sit in the garden among the roses. And every evening, I remember something my father once told me. The strongest roots grow in silence, hidden from view. But when the time comes, they hold everything up. He was talking about the roses. He was also talking about me. About patience. About the kind of strength that doesn't shout or demand recognition. The kind that simply endures, protects, and waits for the right moment to bloom. I finally understand. And I'm grateful.